On that yesterday, where you briefed the President on the 1st of February. I think if we can just take it from what you've stated in paragraph 142 to then continue in paragraph 143.
Perhaps let's start there after the tea adjournment, Mr. Mutau. Let's resume at 11:15. Let's adjourn.
Thank you. And one favor.
All right, so there you have it, the first leg of day 2 of Fannie Masemola's time on the witness stand now coming to an end. Just a minute before 11 o'clock, you're watching our ongoing rolling coverage of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which is probing alleged political interference, criminality, and there's a third one that I'm forgetting now. And corruption, there you go. Thanks, Canny. In the criminal justice system. And Fannie Masemola, as I mentioned, is back on the stand for a second time in his capacity as the as the SABC Police Commissioner. And he's really spent some time, I suppose, going into a whole lot more detail around how the political killings task team was apparently disbanded. And in fact, we've heard a lot of detail around the involvement of the now suspended police minister, who it seems was at the center of that decision. Let's bring Canny Maphanga, who's also been in that room for us and has been listening very closely. And Canny, we had anticipated that the PKTT would be a central part of Fannie Masemola's statement, and I think that's certainly what's happened.
We're getting a glimpse into the aftermath after the 31st of December 2024 decision and what would follow then in the various meetings and discussions between the various role players in this PKTT. We're getting a glimpse into what General Masemola describes as an eagerness to have the PKTT disbanded and to do so immediately without any room for any further discussions regarding the fact. He takes us into a meeting with Minister Mchunu where he asks him for explicit reasons as to why is this particular team being disbanded.
And in fact, Canny, let me come in there because there's that moment that we have ready for you of him detailing the circumstances that led to that meeting, because a lot flows from that. Take a listen to Fannie Masemola in his own words.
During that week, although I do not recall the exact date, I contacted the minister via mobile to request an audience. I informed him of the importance of providing initial and activities of the PKTT. The minister indicated his willingness to schedule time for this discussion. Paragraph 120, at the same time, there were adverse media reports pertaining to crime intelligence. The minister subsequently called me to express his intention to appoint a senior counsel to investigate various issues highlighted by the media, including the appointment of Brigadier Lekhalanyane, Brigadier Mokwele, the security clearance of Lieutenant General Dimsani Kumalo, and the murder of Sindiso Makata. I assured him that detailed information on these topics was readily available to him, and reiterated my previous request to brief him comprehensively on matters of division, crime intelligence, and the PKTT. The minister agreed to attend a briefing on the afternoon of the 16th. So in short, what I'm explaining there is that these matters were that time in the media, and I asked him that, because he says he was concerned, he wanted to appoint a senior counsel to investigate these matters. What I said to him was, well, the information is yours and is available to you. If you choose to go and appoint a counsel to buy it, It's up to you, but it's readily available to you and you can get it for free. And he asked, does that include Senzo Mchunu matter? I said, yes, indeed. It's one of those matters that we said we want to brief you on, because what you see in the media, you know more about what happened to Senzo Mchunu. It is exactly because of the PKTT that investigated the matter. The matter happened long before Dumisani Khumalo joined crime intelligence. And when he joined, he unearthed this. He investigated, he arrested people on this. Currently, we know there are various witnesses that have been protected for this specific case. So it's a case that is unearthed by us. So you can't say, for example, you always hear out there that the firearm and the vehicle that killed Senzo Mchunu was come from crime intelligence. Yes, indeed so, but the reason why you know that is because of the PKTT that investigated the matter. Most people think that this happened now during when General Khumalo was in CI. It's false. No, it's not like that. It happened before him. Upon him assuming the duties as divisional commissioner, while he was at the PKTT, he investigated this matter and they unearthed it and they made arrest. Hence, there are some people. There is a hitman that has been convicted. The case is not yet finalized; it's still continuing. So, I told him that that's how these matters came to light.
All right, so Fannie Masemola there, of course, detailing the circumstances that led to that meeting with Senzo Mchunu and part of what emerged. And Canny, at some stage, the evidence leader actually asked Fannie Masemola what his response, or rather what Senzo Mchunu's reasons were for the disbanding of the PKTT.
Well, it wasn't immediate, but he states that later on during the meeting, he stated that political killings was something that existed pre-1994, so pre our constitutional democracy, and no longer was an issue in our constitutional democracy, and that these were just murders. But General Masemola testifies that no, political murders or killings that relate to a political situation, such as infighting or party to party, has been characterized as political killings, not as simple murder cases. And then he goes on to repeat again the success rate of this particular PKTT against the backdrop that the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu didn't provide anything other than his word of mouth, basically. So he didn't have any documents, any data, anything to support the claim that this PKTT was no longer needed in the operations of policing. Also, he makes it a very important fact to highlight that the concern of the minister was the PKTT, not so much the areas that it had expanded to, such as the killings involving traditional leaders and, of course, the Fort Hare murders, in which the PKTT was gaining ground on those cases as well. And he also goes into its success rate, referring to the case of Senzo Mchunu, which South Africans have been wondering about for years. It's been one of those cases that haven't been solved. But when the PKTT came onto this particular matter, we then learned of the circumstances, and you saw its first successful arrest. And of course, I think the appearance was today that we saw in that particular matter. So again, there's this eagerness to end the PKTT, but there's no substantive reasons behind why it must be ended. And he even says it's even strange to see a minister be visibly upset that a unit is not ending immediately and that it's gaining ground, it has further cases, and it's achieving success in its mandates.
Canny Maphanga, we might as well, I suppose, pick up on what else we've heard today from Fannie Masemola. You're right, it certainly was, and it felt like we were moving at quite a rapid pace. He was also asked about meeting MPs to discuss that directive from the minister to have the PKTT disbanded, and part of what Fannie Masemola said is that only one MP seemed to have supported that decision, and interestingly enough, he said he can't remember how the rest of the MPs actually responded.
I think the gist there was to get a understanding before the Commission that in Parliament, in its role, the Portfolio Committee, once it received these allegations from Konazi, I think that was when it was mentioned that the Police Minister Senzo Mchunu allegedly was in a that Baron Makhotsi was his alleged associate.
Right.
That was brought before the parliamentary committee. In that meeting, I guess, they asked what was the next step taken by Parliament following getting this information. And that is when General Masemola revealed that there was no further probe by Parliament as far as he knows with respect to that issue. And Konazi has already testified that he tried to give Parliament that information and nothing happened. And that is part of the events, or the sequence rather, that led to him making that big revelation before the nation in that July media briefing, is that there were so many efforts to ascertain what is the reason behind the disbandment of the PKTT. Why must it happen so urgently? What happens to the cases that they are gaining success on? What happens to all of those matters that we're seeing now, such as the Cindy Sumakaka case, which has been stagnant for quite some time, and now we're starting to see some movement. There was no real reason behind it. So you see them going into approaching Parliament, approaching the President, approaching various key role players, not receiving any delight from those efforts. And then that eventually leads to the July briefing by Konazi, where he makes those allegations that shock the nation, that leads us today to this fact-finding mission before. Another important point that he makes at the tail end is that it's revealed that in the meeting, or rather the meeting with the minister, we're moving away from Parliament now, that the minister alleged, because we don't know it to be fact, that the President was okay with that decision to disband the PKTT. General Masemola holds a different view, stating that when he informed the President in February that the disbandment was going to take place, that the President was surprised and said that he would speak to the minister, and then of course he was awaiting that feedback, which he later never got. So clearly they contradict each other regarding the disbandment of the PKTT, but again it speaks to this question of this eagerness to ensure on the part of the police minister that this PKTT was disbanded immediately and that its operations were, I guess, severed from the policing, I guess, operations. And again, it begs the question, why? Why was this such a rush? Why did it take place in such a short period of time? What interests were being protected when this particular unit, which we have now been told many times that it was doing incredibly well in its field, so well that it expanded its mandate to go into areas of traditional killers, etc. So we'll get those answers as he continues with his testimony.
In fact, as you say that, I see the commissioners have now taken their seats. Fannie Masemola also back in his seat once again, which means that we are, just about a minute or so to proceedings continuing. And as I say that, Thero Motau launching, I imagine, his first question. Let's continue to listen in.
Is at paragraph 111. That's in relation to the question that Commissioner